The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages,
all of them
are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yeah, it's a muted yay, but we're doing okay so far today. Mark, how are you?
Happy that it's just the two of us. Just the two of us.
Oh, what happened to Jason?
We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Robert Winfree and I.
Doesn't quite have the same... I'll trust the AI to write songs more than...
than my singing. Yeah, we'll get to that in the plugs. We are well on our way for Radulich Broadcasting the album. Next track, next time Jesse and I get together, we're doing the Damn You Hollywood. And I'm thinking, like, it's got to be a kind of a mashup of Marilyn Manson's The Heretic Anthem with Slipknot's Wait and Bleed, because I really want there to be that like, damn you, Hollywood, like screaming rage.
My thought would be you make it a purely instrumental piece in the style of Inagata Davida, and the 9-minute drum solo is the plot synopsis.
God, you ain't just whistling Dixie, pal. Speaking of 9-minute plot synopsises, tonight... Synopsi, yes. What are we talking about there, Robert?
Well, Mark, you said you wanted to call this In the Ring, and I immediately flashed to one of my favorite Hulk Hogan stories. So Hogan tells the story about how Andre the Giant hated Randy Savage.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy would frequently be Randy Savage about the wrestling. Hey, what are we doing? You know, we need to figure this stuff out. We need to go over it. We need to rehearse.
I said that last week, that Randy Savage is a woman and Ricky Steamboat is the man, and Randy Savage wants to plan everything out because he's got the anxiety.
He'd get ready, including like being covered in baby oil, because we're not that long from going out to the ring. You got to look good for the cameras under the lights and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go up to Andre, who's sitting down playing cards with people he likes. Hey, Andre, what are we gonna do out there? It's about time to go out. And Andre would just look up at him and go, "No baby oil, get out!" And then proceed to beat the crap out of Randy Savage in the ring.
Andre the Giant, the original Mongo. No baby oil.
Yeah. Andre.
Call it ring, brah.
Wouldn't even use that many words on it. Just you want to go over it? Just look at you. Okay,
Andre, no.
Anyway. Tonight we are talking about a movie that feels like it was called In the Ring. Not as much as others. We're talking about A Quiet Place Day One.
And A Quiet Place Day One is a 2024 American apocalyptic horror film, sort of. Written and directed by Michael Sarnoski, based on a story he conceived with John Krasinski. It is the third installment in the A Quiet Place film series, serving as a spin-off and prequel. The film stars Lupita Nyong'o as a terminally ill woman during the beginning stages of an invasion in New York City by extraterrestrial creatures with an acute sense of hearing. The supporting cast includes Joseph Quinn, Alex Wolff, Djimon Hounsou, who reprises his role from the second film. So, real quick, A Quiet Place premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival on June 26, 2024, and was released in the U.S. by Paramount Pictures on June 28, 2024. It's received generally positive reviews from critics and has grossed $98 million worldwide. So we'll get to it when we get to the money, but the film's doing pretty well so far. So what happens when you have things on a moderately sane budget?
Yeah, make a reasonably budgeted film, make it good, and hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Lobster.
So up until this past Sunday, I had never seen A Quiet Place. The A Quiet Place Part 2, you, Alexis, and Jason reviewed back in our audio-only days.
Yep.
I want to go back and let's just spend a minute, and talk about the A Quiet Place series.
Okay, Mark, this is the important part of the match. This is the limb work that sets up the psychology of the finish. This is important.
Sure.
You don't have to justify it to the fans. It'll go as long as it goes, and whoever's on after us can kick rocks.
Let me first say that my experience of watching this film was a frustrating one, and not anything having to do so much with the film, but because my son watched the pitch meeting for A Quiet Place.
Which is very good.
Yes.
But
yeah,
you have to watch those after you watch the movie.
Right. It's kind of like meeting the magician before the act and him showing you all of his tricks. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and this works this way. Okay, we'll go out and enjoy the show now. I'm like, well, I can't. I know how you're doing everything. The magic is gone. That was kind of my experience of watching my son watch this, because he had watched the pitch meeting, and then so he spent the entire time being Mystery Science Theater 3000 about the whole thing, and we're like, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Why is he doing that? And I finally had to throw a shoe at him. Like, will you shut up and let your sister and I watch this?
You should have thrown him out of the room.
I couldn't reach him, but
he's squirrely.
So let me. I know you like the film a lot, and it's interesting. I can see why, based on novelty, the film was as successful as it was. Stupid as it is in places, a little confusing. I think as it kind of like the first Paranormal Activity or the Purge, like a lot of these big horror movies, I can see why the initial reaction to it was so positive. The idea of having to do everything without sound, and just the act of being human and the foibles that go along with it. You're gonna make noise no matter how hard you try to be quiet. So when this whole thing hinges on the premise of you have to be as quiet as possible. If you make any noise, you die, which is set up right at the beginning of the movie. The kid's playing with the toy. The toy makes the noise. The alien kills it instantly. There's nothing they can do. The aliens.
I actually love that scene, because so much of what we do originally is done from like the deaf girl's perspective.
Yeah.
That when that first sound cuts in, and we see everyone else react to it first, and then we hear it.
Right.
It's a really nice bit of filmmaking.
Yeah, I liked that aspect of the movie, in the sense that it doesn't, the aliens are immaterial. What you are is watching this family struggle with having to. The reason why I've always hated zombie movies, and why some of them have worked and some don't, and the ones that work for me, or at least the ones like Zombieland, where we just accept the premise that the world is overrun with death, and we still are alive. And this goes to A Quiet Place Day One, big time. We still have to live. If we're not living, we're dying. You either get busy living or get busy dying, and you still have to live a normal life. You still have to be a person. Or what is the point of going on, which is a nice message in these movies. And so death is all around, and they have to figure out how to cope with this and still be a family and get on with things, and then mourn the death of their child and yada, yada, yada. And those aspects of it I really, really liked. When the movie has to deal with the aliens, that's sort of like the weakest stuff for me. But when the family's just trying to be a family and cope in this world, that's the strongest stuff. I'm going to say about the same thing with A Quiet Place Day One, but we'll get there.
It's honestly the biggest problem I had with part two. One of the things I really loved about the first A Quiet Place,
Mm-hmm.
is it's optimistic.
Yeah.
It's not bleak. It's tragic. Dude, you watch an 8-year-old die in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. What? Bravo. Way to be brave, Hollywood.
Hey, that one was. And we
Yeah.
applaud it.
Yes.
But it's not bleak. It's not depressing. It's optimistic. Like, there's people who figured it out.
It's also
Like-
not a meat factory, which is a huge gripe I have with horror. I understand that you and several others like Gorehounds is like the more shit we're throwing at the screen, the more guts we're throwing at the screen, the better. I get bored by that stuff. Just like I get bored by without enough context, just ongoing fight scenes and ongoing action sequences. I think the reason why I used to laugh and made such a huge deal out of the Tarzan swinging car and Fast and the Furious is, well, that's something I hadn't seen before. But when it's the same thing over and over and over again, it gets boring to me.
You mean like the Fast and the Furious franchise, where it's
well, yeah, that's why they have to do things like
it's still boring. That's the problem.
I'm allowed to have my opinion, and my opinion is the Tarzan swing was fun, but everything's like surrounding it, it is boring. You're not wrong. Whereas this, so much of it, like I said, hinges on this family. I was talking, my son was like, why make this movie? So he had an interesting take on it. He was like, this movie is inconsistent. Like, I don't need the pitch meeting to tell me that. He was actually really smart about this. He's like, the movie is kind of wildly inconsistent with what makes a loud enough noise that attracts these aliens. And he had a couple of like different gripes about it. And I said, and he was more talking about A Quiet Place Day One, but he was like, I don't get the point of this movie. And I was talking to him about Hitchcockian tension. I said, if you ever watch Psycho, what makes the killing scene so good is that rise in tension, and then finally, it bursting the tension with that murder scene. And so it's not a particularly graphic murder necessarily. It might have been for its time, but it's certainly not throwing guts at the screen. But you are watching this knife like Jaws enter the scene and come up and down, and you've got the music playing, and it's killing this woman behind a shower curtain. I said, the thing with A Quiet Place Day One, what works about it is the tension of having to be so careful and so still and so quiet, or you die. You just instantly die. These are less aliens so much as they are instant death machines. That's the whole trick of it. So that was one of the things I liked about, and I sit him down and tell him that I liked about the original A Quiet Place. I will say this. It wears on me after a while, and by, I would say, the last third of the movie, when it just descends into, killing the aliens and, it becomes more traditional horror, I was kind of out on the movie. I was like, all right, I don't care about this anymore. But I'm also probably not the typical audience member either.
The finale of that movie is largely saved by the emotional moment when Krasinski sacrifices himself to save the kids.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Apart from that, it's not a bad conclusion to the film, but it's not the strongest aspect of that movie either. So
I have a question, because you and, like I said, you, Jason, and Alexis saw the second one. Going by what they show you in the prequel that we're going to talk about momentarily, the aliens landed on and I want to stress this because I had to point it out to my kids, the island of Manhattan, of which there is no in or off that island without going over a bridge or a tunnel or going by ferry. And they made it a point, much like in The Dark Knight Rises, to blow up all the bridges and tunnels so nothing could get off the island without being ferried.
This is not the problem you think it is, because you haven't seen 2.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying I'm missing something. So why are there aliens out of New York City?
They don't only land in New York City.
Okay.
They land everywhere.
Gotcha.
The opening bit to part 2 is actually the families from part 1, their experience on day 1. And they live in a smaller town, and they're still hit by some of these falling meteors or whatever they are that carry these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they start tearing apart the smaller town. It's actually a really good sequence. But they don't only, it's not like Oh, our entire landing force landed on the island of Manhattan. That we are just watching the group that landed there in this movie. They
Okay.
landed everywhere.
I don't want to get too far ahead because we're still kind of talking about the first two movies, but that's a major problem I have with this one is that's not clear, and you should not assume your audience has seen the first two movies because I sure as hell
okay.
didn't.
Hang on, I'm calling BS on that a little bit.
Why?
You're telling me that it's not fair to assume that people who went to see like Return of the Jedi had seen The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
Now, hang on.
That's not a one-to-one comparison. This is a
closer
prequel.
than you think.
Oh my god. Okay.
Look, man, it's the third movie in a franchise. It's not unfair to expect people to be up to date on the franchise.
It wouldn't. You're fighting me on a detail where all I was asking for was pull the camera back a bit, show the aliens landing everywhere. I mean, Independence Day did a really great job of that. Here's a ship landing in New York. Here's a ship going over LA. Here's a ship over to Washington, D.C.
And look,
and later on, there's a scene of the ships moving to Philadelphia and going to Ohio. And then we're going to Vermont. Yeah.
And
never forget Howard Dean.
You and I are the only people who get that reference. You understand this.
I don't care.
And look, when they get Roland Emmerich to direct the fourth one of these, I'm sure he'll do that. For the rest of these, these are not designed to be big movies in that respect. They're smaller and they're more intimate, so we don't see all that stuff. Look, if part of your gripe is this franchise has one of the dumbest apocalyptic setups you've ever seen, I don't disagree with you.
My only thing is, if you're making a point to say we blew up the bridges and tunnels so nothing can get off that island, but I know there are two other movies out there where they're not on the island of Manhattan anymore because there ain't no farmland on the island of Manhattan. Nowhere. No, not a single bit. I used to live there. I know. Then I'm sitting here going, but I don't understand. Why did they do this? If they've landed anywhere strategically, like they did a lot of damage to accomplish one small goal that doesn't really get them that far. You're dealing with a planet-wide invasion here. Cordoning off just the ones on Manhattan, meh.
Well, look, we don't know believe it or not, we don't know a whole lot about how this thing happened.
Yeah.
So there's still room to play. Was that just the first instance and then more came afterwards? Is this actually an invasion or is this just something flying out there in the cosmos that happened to intercept our planet and now we're just kind of screwed? Like there's a lot unknown there.
That was what I was saying to my kids. My other kind of funny thought about this was, number one, these aliens are my spirit animals. Shut up. You're making so much noise. Shut up. Like, my God, go to bed. Just that's what the aliens were screaming the entire time. Go to bed, as they're like jumping and killing people. Shut up, go to bed. Every single one of these is me as a dad. For God's sake, shut up. Or me at the office. Oh my God, stop talking, do work. So I was cheering for the aliens during all these movies. But my other issue with this was I was thinking about the vastness of space where no one can hear you scream. And they make it a point in this first one of saying, New York City is so loud when you bring all of its decibel levels together, it's a sound of a constant scream. And I was thinking about and I'm not necessarily saying, in this particular case, I'm not saying they should have done this. It was just, I was kind of doing a Jonas and just thinking about this, and my brain went into a bit. But I don't know. We don't know where these aliens are from. They're probably not from this solar system because we haven't run into aliens just yet. And, we know a fair bit about our local solar system. And you're telling me that there are no other planets around the galaxy that make more noise than we do? Are we in fact, in reality, the Alabama of local space? that we are so loud and so stupid that these aliens sent down their dogs to shut us the fuck up because we're making too much noise. Like, I just got this impression that there's an alien race out there, and they are the, and we are like the loud neighbors on the second floor, and they're just banging a fucking broom into the ceiling. Like, shut up, for the love of Christ, shut up. And so that's like the whole like pre-premise to A Quiet Place is we're louder than any other planet in the universe. That they had to come down here and scream and kill and murder us all. I thought it was funny. They seem to have... I could see part of your brain dying, but I was having an amusing thought about it. My kids thought that was funny when I was doing the bit. So.
Hey, I don't object to you doing bits on the show. Some of them hit with me, some of them don't. Some of them hit with other people and don't.
I do think it's funny. Like, really, we're the loudest, or is this that they're just making their way through the galaxy? It's just like, there's some shit going down on that planet. That planet full of yeehaws. Get them, jit them. I'm gonna blink back at you.
Could be.
Anyway, tell me about A Quiet Place Part 2. Like, how much better or worse than it is in the first one?
It's, to me, the weakest of the three.
Mm-hmm.
The basic idea is they start leaving their farm.
Mm-hmm.
They run into Cillian Murphy, and we get a little bit of the people are the real bad guys here, and I hate that trope. Well, yeah. I don't hate it. It's overdone, and you have to have something really special going on besides, oh no, people are terrible, to be interesting. And it kind of flies in the face of one of the things I liked about the first one, which was its optimism, and it treated humanity like, okay, new obstacles, we're going to figure this out. So we have means of communication with each other. There's other people in their vicinity. And so we got a little bit away from that. The crux of that one is there's a couple of things going on. One, they have to keep the new baby quiet, which is kind of a chore.
Oh, my God. I had a lot to say about having a baby in this universe during this time, but I don't even want to get into it. I'm not making you laugh tonight, so I don't want to keep trying. But I'll tell you, my kids, my bit on how on earth after the alien invasion did these two people find the time to be horny and have sex and then have a kid is beyond me. Keep going.
Of all the things I would have expected you to lack imagination on, that is not one of them. And
I mean, you have
let me down, Mark.
It must be a day that ends in Y.
Come on, even Family Guy explained how this was going to go down.
Yes, I've seen the bit where Peter just lays there and he's like, done. Like, I get all that, but still.
Yeah. Again, of all the people I know that would take issue with sex taking place during a post-apocalyptic scenario, you would be the last.
Well, the other side of that is I've seen people really just not be in the mood over the slightest little thing. Like, the wind blows in a slightly different direction. Suddenly they're not into it. You're telling me these two people somehow cut through all of that morass in the middle of, aliens and having been forced quiet and certain death to go, you know what I could use right now? A little bit of hubba hubba, waka waka.
Okay, I'm going to say something. I need you to not take this personally, because this is my answer to this, to some of the question that you're posing, and this is not a shot at you. Okay. Not an insult.
Okay, I got it.
It's amazing what a functional marriage can accomplish.
Might as well have been a shot at me, but I don't care.
That's the answer, and I did not. Whether your status and my perpetual singleness aside, that's the answer.
It's fair. Moving on. You back to 2.
So there's a couple of things. Again, you've got a couple of them trying to keep the baby safe. You have Cillian Murphy and the daughter taking her cochlear implant, and they go to an island where there's a community that's mostly safe because the things can't swim. And there's a broadcast going a radio station there. So their plan is to hook up her cochlear implant to the radio broadcast and send it out because it freaks out the aliens, and then they're vulnerable to being killed.
Right.
So we got a plan to start fighting back, and there's an attack on the village because there needs to be something at that part of the movie, and there's a bit where they deal with terrible humans, and there's one of them that attacks the family back home with the baby, and I think it's the weakest of the three. It's still not the worst thing in the world, but it suffers from the problem that 1 and 3 circumvent. 1 and 3 are not about the monsters.
Right.
The monsters are there. They're an important part of the world, but the story is not about the monsters.
Right.
2, it's kind of about the monsters, and that's just less interesting in general.
Yeah, that's really boring. All right. Speaking of monsters,
if you get the chance and you want to watch it just to get some completionist in there, the opening bit where we see their version of Day One is really good. There's good parts to it. It's just not as strong as 1 or 3.
All right, hit me with that hot plot synopsis.
So as Mark mentioned, we get an opening title card that explains that New York City basically gives off the sound of a constant scream 24 hours a day because there's always people always doing stuff. And they're always talking, and they're always walking, and there's always cars, and there's always horns, and there's always sirens, and there's always stuff.
Yeah.
And we should probably cut it loose and just let it drift off into the Atlantic, but oh, I just annoyed the New Yorker in you.
It's like the height of civilization and financial stability, but sure, just cut it loose like Florida with a saw, Bugs Bunny.
We don't have to wait that much longer. It's sinking into the ocean itself, so there's that. No, have you seen the study on this?
What?
They've put so much weight on the island of Manhattan, it's actually sinking.
That's hilarious.
It really is, but that's
lost city of, we used to joke about the lost city of Atlantis being New Orleans because of flooding and whatnot. It's going to end up being Manhattan.
It might. It really might. But we are introduced to our primary character, our protagonist, if you will, played by Lupita Nyong'o, a woman dealing with a terminal illness, presumably cancer, but never specified, to the best of my recollection. And she's in a hospice center, so it's bad. And
That was the second thing I had to whisper to both my children. They're like, "What's hospice?" I'm like, "It's where you go to die." Now shut up and watch the movie.
And she's there, and there's a bunch of people, and they decide we're going into New York City because we're in the vicinity, and we'll do a thing, and it'll be an excursion for all the people who are dying. I mean, we're all dying, but it'll be an excursion for them. So they go to see a bit of a marionette puppet show.
Hang on. I hate interrupting you because I always beat up Alexis for doing this, but there's an important detail that pays off at the end of the movie. Part of the reason why she wants to go is because she wants to get pizza. Specifically,
she wants real pizza.
She specifically, and we'll find this out later, she wants a particular pizza from a particular place in Harlem that was meaningful to her and her father.
Yeah. And that's kind of why she's here. And they go there. She winds up having a bad reaction to part of the play because when you're bitter and dying, things that are sort of achingly beautiful and quasi-whimsical can mess with your head. So she takes her cat and goes down to a bodega to buy stuff. And when she's coming back, things start going sideways. There's emergency vehicles going down, and the nurse from their facility goes, "Yeah, we got to go back." And she's like, "But you promised me pizza." And they have a minor fight, but they all get on the bus, and then the aliens start arriving, and they start killing everything. And she survives, barely, and wakes up in the theater with a bunch of other people, and we're all having to be quiet because we all figured out fairly quickly that, hiding is a good thing.
And noise attracts the aliens, so shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up!
And there's occasional flyovers from helicopters with loudspeakers giving people instructions that are basically leading a pack of the aliens around like dogs chasing a
The dog chasing the car.
And we see them blow up the bridges because we're trying to contain this thing. They also do fairly quickly realize these things can't swim, so we're going to figure something out, shelter in place, don't do anything stupid, and we'll try to make this happen. And she's like, I'm dying. I don't want to do this. I want pizza. So I'm going to Harlem. I'm going to this pizzeria, and I'm going to die in peace. And the rest of you can do whatever.
I'm just thinking, one of the things that happens in the movie is they have a ferry exit set up at South Street Seaport. I don't expect people, just like, you know, I don't just like, you know, you shouldn't expect me to know like whether or not the aliens only land in New York City or not. I don't expect everyone to know New York City geography, but South Street Seaport is here. Harlem is all the way up there. If she's even remotely near South Street Seaport, she's walking all fucking day to Harlem. Like, she'll get there about the time Frodo gets to Mordor. That is a long walk. I mean, the island of Manhattan compared to, you know, Buffalo is relatively small, but still, you know, and it is walkable, but it's walkable like for a few hours.
Well, it does take her a couple of days.
That's true.
In fairness.
And I guess I guess her thing, you know, is she doesn't know if the subways are working or not.
Well, of course they're not. They're flooded.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So she starts meandering her way up toward. I don't know exactly where they are located, so she might be like equidistant between the 2 points. Because at one point, when they fly over and announce, "Hey, they can't swim. Be quiet. Move to this location, and we'll start loading you onto boats, and we'll all be cool." She moves against the flow of traffic, and there's just a bunch of people walking the other direction, and inevitably it becomes a bit too noisy, and we get another attack.
Yeah,
this was
not a well-handled evacuation that was supposed to be kept quiet.
There's a lot about. I mean, it's easy to poke fun at that one, but like, what else are you gonna do?
Like, I don't know. I guess if you can get like a couple of National Guards guys in there to say, okay, your group A, your group B, your group C.
You're going to bring people into this.
Mm-hmm.
How exactly?
You're going to bring soldiers into it, not my neighbor Harry.
Again, how exactly? You're going to stealth swim across the East River?
Have them rappel down.
Out of a helicopter that's attracted all the attention in the world.
Out of a stealth bomber. Those things are quiet.
So, yeah, it's not handled very well, but at the same time, like, I don't know a better way they could have, like, off the top of my head, like, okay, we have to tell the island of Manhattan who's left alive to get to this location.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do we just like limit the broadcast to the helicopter only flies over one area and says, "Hey, you guys go"?
I mean, you set up a series of speaker systems where they're so loud and so obnoxious the aliens can't ignore them, and that's when you send the National Guards in to get groups of people.
Again, I'm sure if we had like a week to sit down and plan, if we had time to game plan this out beforehand, we might have a workable system. For people working in the moment, I'll cut them a little slack.
I'm not saying it ruins the whole movie for me. It was one of those where I laughed at it only because I'm thinking to myself, "Yep, we can't even walk to South Street Seaport, right?" Though I tell you what,
that most accurate thing about this movie is people not being able to follow directions.
Well, but I was also thinking about I had to walk home from New York City, or at least get to the nearest working train station was on 9/11, and there was
that must have been something.
It really was. I mean, it wasn't this situation. We could make noise, but and it was fairly orderly. We weren't trampling each other, but it did kind of remind me of that, and I was wondering if that was purposeful of the filmmakers. Were you trying to draw an allusion all these many years later to 9/11? But
well, it's been 20. It's coming up on 23 years. We can start using it in film now, I think.
Sure. Anyway, so yes, they trample Lupita Nyong'o and say, you know, and say, go back to the Black Panther movies. You stink. I don't know.
So she escapes.
Listen, the last 5 shows we've done, we've had other people on. I couldn't make jokes. Okay, leave me alone. I miss you.
I miss when your jokes were funny.
Oh my God, suck a dick. Keep going.
I miss when this worked.
It never worked. That's what makes it work.
That's true. That's very true. So around this time, we're introduced to our charming English gentleman young English man of the movie.
Yep.
Who is thankfully not Hugh Grant, because Hugh Grant sucks. He is found by the cat. Her cat, Frodo. Cat's name is Frodo. I'm not even making a joke. She expresses that's the cat's name.
Yep.
And she tells him, like, okay, this is where you got to go. And he's messed up and he almost drowned. Like, he pops up out of one of the subway tunnels that's filled with water, just gasping for air, like it barely made it out.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts following her. And she's like, what are you doing? Stop following me.
And he says, Mongo, follow pretty lady.
That's not what he says.
Might as well have what he said.
He just says, like, I don't trust things that way. I found you. You're the plot armored one for the moment, so I'm sticking with you. I know how this works.
Yeah, he totally breaks the fourth wall. He looks at the audience and goes, if I follow her, I stay alive, right? And the audience went, yes, white man.
And he just expresses that, you know, his parents are back in England. He came over to here for law school. Either at NYU or Columbia would be my guess. And he's freaking out a little bit. And he decides that, you know what? Can I just go get pizza with you? Because that seems about as useful to my time as walking with a bunch of other moving taunt machines that are going to draw everything's attention. So they keep going. They wind up making their way up to her old place, where in the midst of a thunderstorm, they can talk and bond and express some of their emotional trauma. They keep going, and throughout the course of this, we learn a little bit about what's going on here. Not only is she dying, but she and her father was a jazz pianist. And Jamie Foxx drops in from Soul and goes, "Really?" Obscure reference.
I thought you were going to make a reference to Ray there for a moment.
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
Okay.
And she is trying to, as she is dying, wants to have some good time. She wants to go get pizza from this one place that she and her dad used to go to all the time. She wants to have a good day before she dies. And seeing as now the world is ending, seems like as good a time as any. And he just is willing to go along and help facilitate this at the moment. So, again, there's some trials and tribulations. They get up there, they find the pizzeria burned out. Because it couldn't just be crushed, it's burned out, so there's no hope of pizza. And she's mopey about this, as you would be. And he gets her to take him to the bar her dad used to play piano at. And he does a bit of a magic show for her. He goes out to another place, finds pizza, miraculously enough. Brings it back. They share pizza. They share a drink. They share this wonderful human moment. And they trade jackets because she's been wearing kind of a cardigan thing that her dad used to wear. And he's got a suit jacket. And they switch. And she gives him the cat. And they go down towards one of the rivers. I don't know which one, but one of them. And they see a boat that is heading out, and she distracts a bunch of the creatures, so he's able to run and jump in the water away from them and get pulled onto the boat and be safe. And the movie closes with her in Harlem listening to "I'm Feeling Good." Is that the name of that song, or is it something else? I can't remember.
Just keep going.
And she somewhat defiantly blasts that out to the world so the monsters will come get her, because she's had her good days. She said her goodbye to the one guy who showed up and was there for her and was a human connection as her time was running out. And she closed with, the city does sing if things are quiet enough and you can listen to it. And that's where the movie ends.
So I walked out of the movie, and among the other things that we were joking about, I said, my son and daughter both were like, so do the aliens react to thunder and lightning, and because they can't fly and they can't swim, every time there was a thunderclap, did they jump in the sky and swat at it? These were the questions that we were asking. Like, we want to know more about how these aliens work. I like this movie. Jonas's reaction to it was like a 5 out of 10. And he was like, I don't understand why they made this. And I thought that was an interesting take. They made it, obviously, because these things make money and on a relatively low budget. But why else would they make it? Again, you're dealing with one of the things that my daughter and I keyed into when we talked about when the movie was over, and what we liked about it was, much like the first one, it's about hope. I've almost died twice from cancer, and I certainly do empathize with the concept of finding a reason to live when everything seems very much set against you doing so. And our lead character, starting from a place of
everything is shit.
Everything is terrible. Everything is horrible. Yahoo! Really, really, really terrible. Yahoo! I'm really depressed. I'm really downtrodden. Yeah, like they might as well have had Dennis Leary come in and sing that song. She's in a terrible place, and look, for those of us who have had to deal with a terminal illness, like, we get it. Like, especially if it's not caused by anything you actually did. I had a blood cancer. That's just a genetic thing, not from overeating, not from smoking, not from anything else. It was just I hit the genetic lottery and got in one cancer.
I maintain,
and you can feel. Is it? Sure. Come
on. If anything is gonna give you stress cancer,
what deal you fucking people? Yeah, that'll do it. I can certainly understand, like, feeling of everything has betrayed me. I'm just I'm coasting through life at this point, waiting to die. Yeah, that's certainly how I felt at times. I mean, look, at my worst, and I'll tell you, I'm going to share this briefly, very, very briefly. The worst thing about cancer wasn't the cancer; it was the chemo. I was in more pain and more lethargic and felt the shittiest when chemo destroyed my immune system than when I actually had the cancer and, nothing was, the chemo wasn't, the CAR T wasn't working. And at the absolute worst was well after the cancer had been killed in me, well after the chemo had ended, I still didn't have much of an immune system left. And this is about the time that I started getting mouth infections. This is where you and I screamed at each other on a podcast. We were in such a poor mood. That was Mortal Kombat. It was around that time.
When you can't breathe, and I've been dealing with getting $3,000 worth of dental work done, including an unfinished root canal.
But I also was going through mouth problems at the time. I had from vomiting. I had developed a lot of infections and mouth sores, which then caused 2 of my teeth, my wisdom teeth, to have to be pulled. And when they pulled my teeth, they broke my jaw. So for 6 months, I have no immune system. I have no way to heal myself, and I've got a broken jaw. I could barely eat. I was like drinking out of straws. And I woke up for a good long time every day in unending, constant pain. And I still podcasted, baby, with a broken freaking jaw. Anyway, like, there was a point where I was at home with the dog. The kids were at school, Melissa was at work, and I sat on that couch with an ice pack on my face, and petting the dog, and just sobbed. I just don't think I've ever wanted to die as much as I did back then. But there were reasons to live. My kids being the most important one. I didn't want to throw myself off the roof, because I wanted to be there for them. And so I was like, I gotta beat this thing. But yeah, I didn't talk about that part of it much. I talked about the cancer, but I didn't talk about just how bad the jaw thing was for a while. So I can sympathize with the Lupita Nyong'o's plight, dilemma, and I like the arc she goes on. But to my son's point, I don't love this character. He very funny said, like, I feel bad for her. She's dying cancer lady, but that's all she is. She's just dying cancer lady through this whole movie. And then, sure, at the very end, she defiantly saves the white guy and gets him on the boat. And then after having lived her last day to the fullest that she could, she then says, okay, I'm ready to go now. Take me, Jesus. I'm ready to go with you. And he was like, that's all fine and dandy. That's all well and good. But I don't particularly like her as a person. It's a shame that this person was stricken with a terminal illness. And it's nice that she went on this emotional journey, this character building journey. But at the end of the day, she's not a very interesting character to follow. And he's not wrong. That was a flaw of the movie for me as well. Is Lupita Nyong'o's character not tremendously interesting, and because we spend the entire movie with her, I was a little bored. The connection, the antagonism, the stuff she does with what's the fellow's name? Joseph Quinn. I also personally identified with. I want to follow you. Well, I don't want to be around you, but please, madam. I thought when he gets introduced, they have enough going on between them. There was enough sexual tension there between them that kind of got me through it. And he was kind of interesting, but we don't really get to know him that much either, because anytime the movie started to slow down to get you to know him a little bit better, it was at least somebody, like, like a producer or somebody had to have said, no, don't slow this movie down too much. You're going to lose everybody. Don't go too long without there being another alien attack or them running and screaming or something. All right. Like, I get it. I got the structure of it. It was fine. But I wanted to get to know him more, because and we just couldn't. One of the other comments that Jonas made, which I thought was an interesting one, he was like, for a horror movie, this wasn't very scary. It's like maybe one or two jump scares. But
this is more about tension than scares.
Which is what I said to him. I said, I would say the star of this movie, besides the theme of hope, is the use of tension.
Yeah.
It's the best part of this movie. And I did explain that to him. I said, not all horror is the same or created equal. Some horror is about tension and then breaking that tension, not about just kills or jump scares. And he seemed to have understood that. But for him, it was like, it just, we're following an uninteresting lady running through the city, and, and monsters are chasing her kind of, sort of sometimes.
Well, here's the other thing about this. And I don't mean the following as an insult, but we're all so many movies released. You and I have talked about this before. So many movies released now are movies for children.
Mm-hmm.
This is not. This is
fair.
not a movie for kids.
Right. Look, I'm purposely talking about a 10-year-old's perspective, and maybe he's a smarter 10-year-old than normal for the amount of movies I show him. But he makes some interesting salient points. I don't agree with all of them. I'm bringing them up as points of discussion because I'm guaranteeing you there's some people that agreed with him.
I'm not saying that he's wrong about all this. Mm-hmm. He's not. Mm-hmm. I bring that up to bring it up because this is the kind of movie that you've got to have a little life under your belt to really kind of resonate with. Yeah, not to understand, but to resonate with.
Well, that's what I was starting to say. I think the difference between the 10-year-old and the nearly dying 50-year-old is I've been down the road she went down.
Yeah.
I've been through 9/11. I've been through cancer twice. The post-cancer stuff. One going on 2 divorces, moved several times, have had other friends die on me. Plus, not to mention the fact that I've worked in mental health for the last 20 some odd years, and at least half of it was in a correctional institution. I've seen some shit.
Literally.
Being thrown or used as dice or whatever. As opposed to the 10-year-old who...
This is how I protest my treatment here in this jail.
Yeah. As opposed to a 10-year-old who's the worst thing he's ever seen is his parents' marriage fall apart. And even in that, we kid gloves with our kids. I'll tell you that much. Spared them a lot of ugliness that goes along with the dissolution of a marriage.
Yeah.
So, so I think like you're not wrong. I think if you've led a sheltered or you're a child life, this movie doesn't resonate with you as much as someone like me or you who have been through the mill.
Yeah. Personally, the characters are a little bit weak.
Yeah.
But the strength of this movie is what their characterization allows them to achieve emotionally.
Sure.
And granted, all things considered, I'd rather have both. But watching interesting characters do nothing is maybe more frustrating than watching flat characters do things that are interesting. And it's not as simple as that. Like, you can debate that point back and forth, and you can find instances of both being better than the other, and it's not a 1-to-1. But I mean to say that, like, if the writing prompt here is we're going to do another Quiet Place movie, we want it to be about the first day, all right? And we sit here going, okay, what can we do with this? We've done the rural thing. Hey, what if we set it in New York City? New York's big, New York's loud, a lot of people, chaos will reign. Okay, that's not a bad idea, but like, what are we actually going to do here? Because we can't just show you a montage of images.
Right.
So what are we going to do? Okay, dying character who sees the opportunity to, rediscover what makes life worthy and human connection. And we have to do it on budget and on time. Do we devote a lot of time to like deep character moments, or do we let that fall a little bit by the wayside in favor of the overall journey? And it's not I said, ideally you get both, but gun to the head, like, which one? I don't think they made the wrong choice. I don't think it serves the idealized version of this movie, but this was never going to be like the deepest character study. So giving us broader characters that we can just follow clearly through their journey, both emotionally and physically. I understand it.
If you were more invested in Lupita Nyong'o's character, when she dies at the end has more of an impact. Its impact on me was only because I know what it is to feel like, okay, I'm ready to go now. I've lived my best life. I'm ready. I watched my grandmother who had a stroke kind of have that moment of, I've lived a long life. I've got children. I've got grandchildren. I've had family. I've traveled. I've seen things. I've already had one stroke, recovered, proceeded to have a second stroke. I'm ready to go now. I'm done. Okay. That all sits with me pretty well. But to the other point, when she gets to that place, if I liked her more of as a person, and I was cheering for her to survive this thing, then that moment has more of a, Coco cry impact on me than it did.
Yeah, and I think there's a version of this movie that might be able to achieve that, but it's just that's a really big ask for this kind of a movie. And I don't just mean like a horror movie. I mean, consider the budget, consider what we're doing. Yeah,
Well, it's an element of writing. I think it. I think it's a. I only think it's a big ask because one of the criticisms we have of modern Hollywood is that it's less talented by half than it was 30 years ago. You know, the children of the people that made the best movies of the 80s aren't nearly as talented as the grandparents. That's just a fact.
yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I'm going to be more forgiving of this one than a lot of people, just because I'll take the emotional journey that I can get with these characters,
Mm-hmm.
partially because it doesn't feel trite.
Yeah.
There's another version of this movie where everything about it is just like sappy and Hallmark level in terms of like the emotional resonance.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, this is not the deepest thing in the world, but it's not that shallow either. And sometimes that's the biggest win you're going to get.
Yep.
So, and there's some just genuinely beautiful scenes in this. Like, in particular,
before you, sorry, go ahead and finish. But there was a craft element here that I want to make sure I don't forget because it was important to me and Lily.
Go ahead and make your point. Then I know what I'm going to say.
Something I thought about with the first Quiet Place, and I want to echo the same sentiment with the Quiet Place Day one. Neither one should have used the score. I think these movies would have been, the first one being even more successful, and I think this one wildly successful aesthetically, if you eliminate the score and the movie is just the noise of the scene, just the ambient noise, or no noise at all when there is none to be had, I think would have added to the tension, would have added to the aesthetic, the gimmickry. I think we accept the addition of scores in movies because they elevate a scene. It becomes part of the picture. It's like using different kinds of paint in your painting. You know, like, yes, we started with oils here, but then I added watercolors in this part of it, and because I wanted a different texture for this painting that I'm doing. Okay, we all accept that. Here, you're telling a very precise kind of story about a particular incident and I think breaking the veneer. I mean, yes, it's wildly fictional. It's aliens fall out of the sky and yell, "Shut up! You're making too much noise at us," and kill people. Cool. However, once you've accepted that conceit, and this veneer sort of comes into play of this is the world, you break that veneer when you add a score in a way that it doesn't bother me with other movies, and this one it did. And it bothered Lily too. Lily, who's not the most critical of films, you know, she gets beat up by her brother on an constant basis, just, you know, because she just goes like, "It's nice," and he's just like, "No, have more of a thought than that." I could hear the two of just wow. But and here, like, that was her big thoughtful criticism of, I think the score took away from the movie. I don't think it lended the gravitas it's supposed to. And I agree with her.
I'm torn on that one because I'm sure that thought crossed their minds at some point, like the people making these things. And I just wonder if they looked at it without the score and it just didn't work.
I don't know. Depends on what they think they were going for versus what I wanted out of these movies.
That's fair. I mean, I'm sure you can find versions without the score.
I would also tell you that they might have tried it without the score, submitted it to the producers to watch, and they went, "There's no score in this thing. You got to have a score." Because I'll tell you, that's a lot of that. You know, we call it lizard brain. It's not quite as lizard brain as we normally talk about, but there is an uncreative element to a lot of people that is more informed by whatever was will always be. And movies always have scores, so you have to have one. In this one, people like music, and they're like, no, don't you understand, Master Bob? We're trying to do a thing with sound and the lack of sound, and that's the whole thing. That's, you know, the lack of sound is the thing. And they were like, put a fucking score in it, you psychos. Like, ugh, fine.
Could be. I mean, by the same token, like, you and I have watched enough film that we can appreciate the following sentiment. the score is so critical to a movie that if you don't think about it, you don't realize how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember which
I was gonna
one.
say, could you imagine Halloween without that score?
Let me give you another one. There's a couple of different parts in, I forget which Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Rogue Nation or the one right before it, so Fallout. Or sorry, it's either Dead Reckoning, Part 1, or the one right before it, which again would be Fallout. I think Tom Cruise is the one who, to his credit, was like watching the stuff as it was, getting ready to be finalized and went, "This isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't working. This whole scene, it's a big action scene, and there's no audience engagement. Like he's like looking at test audience scores and whatnot, and it's not working. They changed the score, and suddenly it's a huge hit. Suddenly it's the part of the movie everyone remembers. Like that's how important it can be. So personally, I'd be curious to see it without the score, but I guarantee you there's a couple of places where the movie would be lesser without it. I also agree there are places where it could be enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how that one lines out.
I'm going to go ahead and let you make your point. I'm going to throw this. So this will be the last thing that I say. Last year, one of our favorite movies in terms of sound design was Evil Dead Rise. You could feel the crunching in your body of the glass. Everything about the sound design of Evil Dead Rise was phenomenal. And I kept thinking that the sound design here was going to be the star of this thing. I think they missed an opportunity to do so, because let me tell you how in the quiet dead of night, when something makes a sound, it sounds like a Metallica concert. It's just so goddamn loud. If you ever drop something in the middle of the night, it sounds like you've woken the dead. And they don't really do that here, but that's the whole point you're trying to make, isn't it? Is that the smallest sound is your doom, and they don't do anything with that. That the sound design is just sort of adequate, which is unfortunate.
I'm kind of with you in the sense that I think it could have been better, but we also spent a lot of time this year and last year kind of getting beat over the head with dumb technical decisions. So the fact that this is as good as it is in that respect and doesn't necessarily rise to the level of something really good, but it's kind of sad that we're in a place where like slightly better than competent stands out so much, but here we are.
All right, go ahead and talk about your thing.
Just that there are some beautiful sequences in this movie. For a guy who doesn't like whimsy, and hey, guilty. That bit when he just like does the little magic card trick with her in the bar.
I loved it.
It's delightful. It's genuinely lovely.
It kind of reminds me of the cold open from that one episode of Breaking Bad where they show what's his nuts doing the wood carving.
Yeah,
they're making the box or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a warmly lit scene, and it's just, hey, you did a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did this one thing with my life that I'm proud of to this point, and then you're jerked back to reality, where you're a slave. Jesse Plemons.
Yes.
So yeah, that scene is great. The bit when she like distracts all the creatures so he can make a run for it. It's not the most tension-filled scene in the movie, but it's the emotional high point because it's this kind of selfish character finally doing a selfless thing.
Yeah.
And so that's nice. There's a really interesting sequence earlier when there's a guy freaking out in a stairwell about we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And Djimon Hounsou has grabbed him by the face and is like, shut up. You make noise, we're going to have a problem. Shut up. And the guy just won't stop freaking out. And his son's at the bottom of the stairs watching this. And you can see he looks over a couple of times at his kid like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
but you do not get to endanger my child like this. And then he crushes his head against the wall.
I'm sorry. I apologize profusely. One of the things that we've complained about over the last year, especially, is they're putting stuff in the marketing and then they're not the star of the movie. We talked about this with Austin Butler and the Bike Riders. There was a couple of other movies we've said, like, this person's all over the marketing and the trailer for this movie, and then you see the movie and they're barely in it. What the fuck why did they even bring Djimon Hounsou in for this? They wasted that character.
Well, he's in part 2.
I understand that, but
I agree that he was advertised disproportionate to his appearance in the film.
yes.
That's very true. I mean, that said, he does get he gets that one great scene when he kills this guy. He doesn't.
Yeah, no.
And then
that's good, but then we don't. Then he's off on the ferry, and we don't see him till the end of the movie.
Yeah, and look, man, there's budget and time constraints. This is not an epic about the people who's escaped from Manhattan.
Here's the thing: 100 of the black guys need the work. They didn't need him for that. And if you're like, well, we needed a link to the second one, no, you didn't.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't know. You hired a guy who you knew could do the job. Like, oh no, the horror.
Why don't you just bring back John Krasinski while you're at it?
Because we know where he was when this happened, and it wasn't there. There's no reason for him to be in this.
It's one of those lizard brain studio exec moments where I guarantee you that wasn't Djimon Hounsou's character, but they were like, we need a character, and I guarantee you someone went, well, why don't we get John Krasinski back? They're like, because he's not there, we can't just retroactively fit him into this. Like, oh, how Emily Blood, stop talking. We can't keep bringing the popular characters. Well, who do we got? I don't know, Djimon Hounsou. Fine, that's how that went.
And I'm just gonna ask, so what?
Again, go on, make your point.
Look, if you want to bag on the marketing, I'm with you. Like, no, you're disproportionately advertising a character who's barely in the movie. Yes,
that is a problem.
Criticize away. Criticizing the hiring of Djimon Hounsou is like.
I had the same problem they had Idris Elba in this Extraction too. You have these amazing actors for 2 minutes in the movie, and then you're thinking, well, they'll be in the sequel. You're not supposed to operate that way. Make the movie you're in good. Worry about a sequel if it's good enough.
I don't care that you hire great actors for bit parts anymore. I just don't.
Okay. You're allowed to not care, but I'm also allowed to call it out.
I just think it's a stupid call out.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Oh, look, we hired Idris Elba. Be happy Idris Elba's got work.
Idris Elba had The Wire. I'll forever be happy about anything Idris Elba does.
The point is just, it seems weird that your complaint is hire an unknown black actor for this role instead of hiring a guy who's a very good actor.
For the 5 minutes he's going to be in the movie? Yes.
No. Hire the guy you know can do the job, and who cares?
Oh, my God. Okay. I'm not cutting you off anymore because I eventually want you to get to your point. Go.
No, we need to hash this out because this is going to be a sticking point, I think. Mark's decision that, like, okay, if your role on screen is less than 5 minutes, you can't be someone anyone would recognize.
It seems trite and contrived, and a big obvious studio note. They were like, we need a link to the other movies. Which cast member is available that makes sense here? And they went and they got him, and then did nothing with him. If Djimon Hounsou is in Josh Quinn's place, I'm fine with it. Like, trade those two guys, and I'm fine with this movie. The way they have it is stupid to me.
I don't know. I just don't think that's a gripe worth having. I think you're going to wind up being annoyed about a lot of things that don't matter. If that's how you're going to die on.
That's kind of how I am these days. Annoyed about a lot of things, just forever vibrating.
I'm just warning you. I'm not sure that's a hill worth dying on.
Okay, I'm not standing on my chair yelling, "Don't go see this movie." Djimon Hounsou's not in it enough. It's a comment that I made.
I don't have a whole lot of. I think just as a closing remark, this movie, like the first one in this franchise, is strong because it's not about the monsters. The monsters are there. They provide a good backdrop. They provide the gimmick. But the movie is about something else. The first one's about a family dealing with the loss of a child and trying to rebuild themselves. It's about a father and a daughter being estranged a little bit, and the daughter like blaming herself for that kid's death and projecting that onto what she thinks is her father's bitterness at her, and he might have more bitterness than he thinks he does, but he has just really struggled to express that he still loves this child. And that's what it's about. The monsters are just there. This is about finding reasons to live. This is about enjoying life while you have it. It's about reconnecting and finding the value in what it means to be human with each other, regardless of whether or not the world's falling apart. Just being, finding someone else that you can bring that you can like bring something good into their lives, and they can bring something good into yours, and the whole world's better off for it. And that the monsters are a backdrop. They're not what the movie's about. And horror movies, this is only loosely a horror movie, but any movie like this is better when it's about something other than the gimmickry. And too many movies are just the gimmick.
Mm-hmm. All right, speaking of gimmicks, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Alrighty. On a budget of $67 million, this thing has made $98.5 million as of this recording on Monday, July 1st, in the year of our Lord 2024.
So it'll ultimately be fine.
Yeah, this movie is one of the success stories of this year. It'll probably end up, I said this in our chat, it'll probably end up being in my top 10 for the year, but that speaks to the lack of good movies this year and not the quality of this one.
It's a bit of a soft year.
Yeah.
That's true.
As of June 30th, 2024, Quiet Place Day 1 has grossed $53 million in the US and Canada and $45.5 million in other territories. Excuse me. For a worldwide total of $98.5 million in the US and Canada. A Quiet Place Day 1 was released alongside Horizon, an American Saga Chapter 1. And
we'll get to that.
Oy vey. And was projected to gross $40 to $50 million from almost 4,000 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $22.5 million on its first day, including $6.8 million from Thursday night previews, the best of the series. It went on to debut $53 million, finishing second behind Holdover Inside Out 2. I read somewhere today that they're thinking of now doing kind of like a two-pronged Quiet Place series. There's the Quiet Place prequel series, kind of like the X-Men movies, where you'll have the X-Men. You'll have the Quiet Place prequel series starting with this one, but you'll have the Quiet Place movies that follow the Emily Blunt family. Which, look,
you can do
I
that.
just spent the last. I feel like we've been politely fighting with each other this entire episode. So here, all I'm going to say is, look, it doesn't matter whether or not this appeals to me or if it excites me or not. If enough people if they're making these cheaply enough and they're making money and enough people like them, and you want to create more than one revenue streams, more power to you. I've sort of thrown my hands up and said, so much is not working right now. Disney. That if something is working, God bless you, and as you would say, party on. Make your money. Make that cream, cash rule everything around me. All right. Speaking of things making money and speaking of Disney, for the third week in a row, Inside Out was the number one movie of the weekend.
I believe I called that. Did I not?
Yes.
You
but you
guys were fairly convinced that A Quiet Place would take the number one spot, and I said, I'm not sure about that.
But also after you said nothing, that Pixar Inside Out 2 wasn't going to make any money at all this year, so shut up.
I never said that.
Yes, you did. We both did. We both.
Hang on. No. I never said it was going to bomb. I said I was dubious about it. Turns out I was wrong about that, but that's not one that we said was going to bomb, I don't think.
A Quiet Place Part 2. Quiet Place Day 1 debuted at number 2. Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1 debuted at number 3.
With $11 million on a budget of like Kevin Costner's entire bank account.
Yeah. Bad Boys fell from 2 to 4. Kalki 2898 DD debuted at number 5. The Bike Riders fell from 3 to 6. Garfield 5 to 7. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is quietly making money in its 8th week, believe it or not.
Hey, look what happens when you don't take a movie out of theaters after 4.5 weeks. Who'd have thought?
Fell from 4 to 8. Kinds of Kindness. I got to talk about this really quick. So I wanted to go see Kinds of Kindness last Friday.
You're a weirdo and you like the Yorgos.
Oh, hey, we got a comment here real quick. Maxwell King says, just found this channel. I also review horror movies and do skits. Your style is awesome. Keep it up. P.S. Just sub. Thank you very much, pal.
Thank you for the subscription, sir. We
very much
it.
appreciate that. Yeah. I wanted to go see Kinds of Kindness because now I'm big into, even though I didn't love The Lobster, I loved Poor Things. We all know how much I gushed about it. I don't need to keep repeating myself. So I figured, let me go see the new Yorgos movie. And I was going to see it Friday, and the girlfriend rang a bell, and she was like, no. Never mind what you want to do. Never mind, the times you enjoy by yourself. You come see me. Mind you, I'd been there, I think like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But she was like, no. Come to the house now. So I ended up not seeing Kinds of Kindness. And so Melissa and the kids are going to their grandmother's to dog sit while the grandmother and grandpa go on vacation. So I'm going to go live at the girlfriend's house for the next 2 weeks. One of the days that I'm going to be there, she's not even going to get home until like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I'm trying to see Kinds of Kindness this Friday. And I'm trying to fit it in before movies that don't suck and some that do their review on Kinds of Kindness. Because I want to review it with them. Because that's become like my second chance podcast to review movies that we don't do.
Second podcast family, Mark.
What?
What do you mean you have a second podcast family? I am deeply wounded.
That's my secret family that I wasn't telling anyone about. That he said publicly on a public podcast. But that's how I ended up doing Challengers, Monkey Man, Boy Kills World. Like, we weren't going to do any of these. We certainly were. Dude, look, there were, much like Bad Boys, there were just certain movies where I was like, I'm not putting Robert through that. I took Beverly Hills Cop 4 off the schedule because I just don't want to. I'm long past the point of trying to purposely agitate you, believe it or not.
I believe it.
And there are certain movies I know that it's just going to be a fight with you, and it's not. And I don't feel like fighting with you all the time. Like we clearly, given this show, we can find other reasons to fight. I don't have to invent reasons. So, that being said, there are just certain movies where it's like, okay, I don't want to do them here, and I don't want to do them with anyone I normally work with. Let me go over to their show, and I'll do it with them, and I'll get out what I need to say. So, like Challengers,
they give me a solid 15 minutes, and I'm able to get everything I need done.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's been. Like, I have 15 minutes of material any one of these movies, and I get my shit in. Then they pay me, and I'm off to the locker room with a fat check. It's great. So. Like my whole thing with Challengers was I wanted to talk about, I was promised a threesome and I didn't get a threesome in this movie. What the fuck? I said it. I did it.
True to life for you, huh?
No, in real life, I'm in threesomes I don't want to be in. But that's a story for another day.
Also like that movie, guys.
Yeah, really. So anywho, but like when I saw the TV Glow was the same episode, there's no fucking way I was gonna put you through that. But it meant a lot to my daughter. It meant a lot to my daughter. It's something I wanted to talk about. What was that?
For the record, I don't always hate movies like that.
I thought that one, given the subject matter and the themes of it, you were going to not be particularly wazooey about. Like, I had a better chance of selling you on Boy Kills World and Monkey Man than I did that one.
Monkey Man, I would have seen.
Yeah,
Monkey Man, I would have done with you.
Had Monkey Man not come out the same weekend as WrestleMania, it would have been on the schedule.
Yeah,
because I ended up talking on Monday about WrestleMania with Ronnie instead of doing Monkey Man on Damn You Hollywood. Anyway, so I'm hopefully, crossing my fingers, going to be able to see Kinds of Kindness this Friday because we might be doing it on Saturday with them. Here's the problem: I went and checked the movie times today. It might be out of theaters by this Friday. Like, and this is why. If anyone's ever like, as hoity as we tend to be these days, and like, why don't they, and even you have said it, like, why don't we do more art house stuff on Damn You Hollywood?
Sometimes it's hard to find.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not a matter of not wanting to do it. It's a matter of, shit, if I can't get to it, God only knows, you living out in Utah, where if you're going to be able to find the fucking thing. And a lot of times what ends up happening is a art house indie, focus feature or searchlight movie.
It's in theaters for like a
20
week and
minutes.
a half.
Yeah, it's out of the theater before the movie ends.
Yeah, then midway through, you get a different film. They just start showing the next Marvel movie. Is kind of how that works half the time.
Your brother and to rub noses. I am here just in time to say I was right. I told Robert at the start of the year Inside Out 2 was hitting $1 billion. Yeah, you tell him, Robert.
He did. My optimistic brother, he did in fact believe that was going to be a big hit this year.
Yes. Anyway, so hopefully, I'm hoping this Friday. I just need to wait till Wednesday, and then they'll put the times for that particular movie in the AMC app that I have. Otherwise, I'm fucked. I gotta wait for the goddamn thing to come on digital. Which, given the way movies are now,
otherwise you wait 2 days and then it's on Amazon.
Right, right. Anyway, so that's Kinds of Kindness. That jumped from 13 to 9 and opened in.
It got its wide release.
Yeah, it got its wide release. Jet and Juliet 3 opened at number 10. Blue Lock opened at 13. Something to Stand For with Mike Rao, number 15. Daddy-O, number 17. Last Summer 27. June 0 to 33. The Vertilac 34. Hour of Glory 38. How to Come Alive with Norman Mailer debuted at number 40. And that was the weekend that was, says Henry Kissinger. All right, worldwide movement. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Roberts of all ages, Inside Out has crossed the $1 billion mark. And to the question, will anything in the year of our Lord 2024 crack $1 billion? And the answer is, holy shit, Pixar.
One movie thus far. And there's an outside shot for Deadpool and Wolverine, but Inside Out too. You know what? Good for them. Sincerely.
When we talked about Inside Out, we talked about what's been going on with Pixar since 2019. You throw 2020 out because it was the year of the lockdowns. But 2021, Turning Red, I think it was Turning Red in 2021, went right to Disney Plus.
Yeah, I think 2021 had like Turning Red and Luca.
No, 2021. Turning Red was 2022.
Okay. So Luca, and I think there was something else in 21, but don't quote me on that.
I remember 2021 was for sure because we did that right about the same time we went on video. So Luca went straight to Disney Plus, and Turning Red, which initially was supposed to be the return to theater, and they chickened out and threw it on Disney Plus. And then Lightyear was the triumphant return to theaters, and it bombed historically. And then
it bombed so hard there are now ethics debates around the use of the bomb that was Lightyear.
And then Elemental, slowly but surely.
We're gonna have a conversation when we talk about the long arc of Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
Elemental as their brand event to be like, hey, it's okay, is going to wind up being an incredibly important movie in their history for just earning back a degree of audience trust.
Yeah, it was one of those where we kind of, jostled it and shoved it in a locker for its opening weekend, and then we had other shit to talk about, so we kind of stopped talking about it. But the story of Elemental was quietly behind the scenes while we're laughing at Flash and Indiana Jones 4 was making money. Yeah. It was opening up around the world and was making money, and it was quietly telling people we're not as gay as you think we are. And people came back. And so
we're sorry for Lightyear, we really are.
Yeah. And so then we have Inside Out 2, which, despite Bailey's protestations that no one wants it, recognizable characters, likable characters, relatable stories, and not gay. And you look what happens, everyone. I mean, I don't want to say the go woke, go broke thing because that's becoming kind of the cry of the neckbeards and incels. But I mean, you can't. I don't argue with reality, and you can't knock the hustle. They made it. They made a movie very straightforward for families to enjoy on a worldwide basis, and families came out, and gave it its money. I'll tell you this: my son's reaction to Inside Out 2. So we walked. I told you we walked out of the movie. He was like, "It was okay." It was not his sister related more to it than he did, And when I told him it made $1 billion, he went shit. And I went, "What's wrong, son?" And he said, "Well, now we're just going to get nothing but sequels out of." He didn't know about Sequel Mania. He was just going to get nothing but sequels out of Pixar. This is ridiculous. I wish it had failed. I don't want this. And I was just like, "Welcome to my world."
Like, did you have to sit him down, show him Pixar's filmography, and go look at all the sequels already?
Well, Sequel Mania was worse. It was literally like, flailing and grasping at straws to try to make any, and that's my point. The only reason why I brought that up again was with Inside Out 2 making $1 billion, the wrong message Disney's going to take from this is only make recognizable sequels, which isn't really the lesson. The lesson is make stuff that appeals to families. It doesn't really matter if it's recognizable or not, and be consistent. Don't go doing what you did with Turning Red and
all the others, all of them.
Your brother, I'm not gonna put the comment on screen, but your brother says Deadpool and Wolverine, The War of Rohirrim, and Despicable Me 4. Not sure what else could even get close to $1 billion. I don't see The War of Rohirrim making $1 billion, but yeah, Despicable Me 4 and Deadpool and Wolverine, sure.
Deadpool and Wolverine might. The problem with this is not the biggest limiting factor, but Deadpool's a very R-rated character, and that's a very R-rated movie.
Yeah.
Which, not impossible, just just a statement of fact.
I don't think a child less than 10 is going to have their parents take them, but the children that are 10 and up, their parents will take them because they love the Deadpool character. This is a beloved franchise, which by a lot of people
is utterly baffling to me. Like, I don't understand that one.
I don't have the time or the patience to explain it to you.
I know, and I'm just saying, like, look, guys, I have not liked any of the Deadpool movies, personally.
Yes, you are the only one on Earth.
I'm not the only one on Earth. It's a small group. But listen to our other reviews if you want to understand my logic behind that. So suffice to say, like, I am not jazzed about Deadpool and Wolverine. Especially since we're opening that movie by turning Deadpool into a loser.
Yeah. All right, let's move this on.
My brother's right about Despicable Me 4. That one might. Outside shot, but it might.
Dune Part 2 staying where it is at number 2 at over 700 million.
Then we get our $200 million drop to Godzilla and Kong.
Which they've greenlit a third one of these things. And I'm just like, why? Stop, please. Ugh. If they make enough of these, we'll eventually get to $1 billion. Like, come on. Kung Fu Panda 4 at 543 at number 4. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, almost at 400 million. Okay, cool. Bad Boys, Ride or Die, 331 million. Wildly successful for that movie. The Garfield movie at 239 million. The Garfield movie. Here are all the movies doing less well than the Garfield movie. Frozen Empire.
Ooh, what a man! We gotta have another. When we get to our year-end bit, we're gonna have a discussion about Frozen Empire and the catastrophe.
Did you see? I dedicated an entire show to that. I redid the schedule, and mostly because I haven't told you about this yet, but there was a conversation that happened. I think somewhere around the bike riders between me and Dorian, where Dorian's like, "Hey, Mac had a good time. New Andrew had a good time. Shay wants to come back on. I want to do more of these. And I have like 10 pretty girls that want to come on your show who have more to say than Shay does. So they all want to come on the show and talk too. How do you, so I know you don't like a lot of new people, and I know it's like I'm an autistic person. Like, I know you don't like a lot of new people and a lot of loud noises, and I know you don't like more than 4 people on a show, but maybe bend some of these rules, and I'll bring more of my people in. You're widen your audience. And I laid down on the floor and said, I give up. I give up, Robert. This is it. This right here, me and you, last time this is ever going to happen. Because every single motherfucker on earth now wants to be on this show, all led by the Pied Piper, Dorian Price. And so we're going to we're going to turn into the bleeding edge. Like, it's very much don't join me, I'll join you, Jeff Sloboda. Let's have 6 people on every show. And we'll do one episode each for reviews and just anyway. My whole point here is that what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, just in the I had to go back. That's why I was talking about this. So he sent me a list of. I sent him a list of everything we're doing for the rest of the year. He sent it to Shay. He sent it to Mac. He sent it to a whole bunch of his friends, and they all sent me back. This is why I put it in the group chat. Everyone sent me requests of what they want to do, and I'm just like, well, I don't care anymore. Anyone can be on whatever show they want. I don't even, Alexis and Pat, you guys want to do a show together? You don't? It doesn't matter. You're both on the same show now. How about that? Right? I'm going to do a show with Ronnie, Alexis, and Pat. It's going to be fantastic.
It would be worthwhile watching.
Yeah, it would definitely be entertaining television. So that made me have to then kind of retool the schedule a bit. And the whole point of me saying all of that was I picked normally we do our year in review stuff as a part of like a Netflix review, like we did with Rebel Moon or All Quiet on the Western Front or something like that. Yeah, this year I just decided, you know what? That segment's always an hour long. It's worth its own show. Fair enough. Also, and the other point of this is last year we did it off camera, but we spent a good hour going through the following year schedule. Like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I was like, you know what? Here's what I've learned through TikTok Live. People just like watching innocuous bullshit. So here's a show where Robert and I are gonna go back over the year of our Lord 2024 and talk about the films that were and the money they made, and then you're gonna watch us do our schedule for the following year. I hope you like it, you lucky so-and-sos.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so yes, I'll share the date with you if you're interested. Though I think I may have tagged you in it. Moving on.
If you put it on the calendar, then I can see it.
Yeah. So yeah, Ghostbusters is at number 8. If is at number 9. Bob Marley's at number 10. Jesus Christ, the Fall Guy has not made it into the top 10. It's at number 11, just above Furiosa, and they are within $3 million of each other.
Furiosa not doing better than the Fall Guy. Ow.
Yeah. Yeah. The Beekeeper is at number 13,
which did
better than Civil War.
Hang on. The Beekeeper, runaway success, by the way, from January. Huge hit.
Yep. And the Beekeeper beat out Civil War, Mean Girls, Madam Web, A Quiet Place is debuting at number 17.
Be nice to day one because that one might go higher.
Yeah. Exuma, Argyle, ugh. Challengers, double ugh. Night Swim, The First Omen, Back to Black, way vey. Boy, am I glad I didn't force that one on the schedule. And Abigail sitting at 32, Monkey Man at 35.
Yeah, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare just breaking all of our hearts there at 42.
But behind that is the Bike Riders at 23. And
hey, look, Despicable Me 4's opened up in some places and is already making money. Scroll back up.
My God, Lisa Frankenstein all the way down to 72 at that thing from February, and it didn't even break 10 million.
That's sad. Scroll back up for a second.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah, there's Despicable Me 4 at 44. Already with
$25 million.
Already $25 million from whatever limited release it has overseas right now.
Yeah. Kinds of Kindness and is within 2 spots of I Saw the TV Glow, both under 5 million. All right, so Boy Kills World, that's what I was looking for. Boy Kills World petered out at a little over $3 million. So this week, Despicable Me 4 comes out July 3rd. It'll be out just in time for the long July 4th weekend. So by the time we come back here on Monday, July 8th, I'm sure it'll have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of being out in theaters at a time where all kids are out of school. I'm sure it's going to make just shit tons of money. The Minions and Despicable Me movies are a wildly successful series of franchises.
That whole franchise amuses me to no end, not only because it kind of tickles my funny bone, but because most of them you watch and go, I want to throw my hands up in the air and go into the woods to live deliberately. And for some reason, like the Minions and their antics are like cause you and I to switch places.
Yeah.
Sort of like philosophically. And it's the weirdest thing, but it's
the special magic that makes us us. So A Quiet Place day one's currently at, like I said, 97 million ish. It's already successful. It needs to
It's
make
got to do
north of
120.
yeah, it's got to do between 120 and 130 in order for in order for Paramount to break out the champagne.
So it needs to do a third already of what it's got now. It's going to be fine. This may
So-
not be. This is probably not going to be like a giant success, but it's going to be
Mhm.
fine.
So, as far as like its competition, it's not competing with Despicable Me 4.
No.
Whatever is coming out on the 12th, we're not even looking at because there's not on the schedule, and I've got Sons of Anarchy in its place. Season 6, by the way. And then Twister, I think, will be the number one movie of its weekend. That comes out July 19th. That's actually tracking really, really well.
Yeah, but
There's a lot of hang on. There's a lot of ink being spilled about how starting with Inside Out 2, suddenly the summer box office has wind in its sails.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. Twisters, like you said, it's tracking well. By the time we get to it, everything else will have been out. Everything else major will have been out for at least 2 weeks, including Despicable Me 4. So we're not. It's probably going to get there. It looks like a decent enough time. I'm a sucker for a disaster flick. They're one of my guilty pleasure genres. So I expect to have a mostly good time.
The lead actor in it, though, again,
Glenn Powell.
Yes, Glenn Powell, who was in Top Gun Maverick. He was in Anyone But You, which did pretty well as far as audience appreciation. Nobody's a star in Hollywood, and nobody draws money. Not know how. But Glenn Powell actually looks like a rugged, handsome movie star. Like if I'm like, give me 5 young fellas to lead any major motion picture at any given time. Ones that are versatile. They can do drama. They can do comedy. They can do action. They can do sci-fi. They can do fantasy. They can do romance. They can do it all. Glenn Powell's on my list of 5. He's fantastic, and he's in this movie. His face is all over the poster. Along with the tornadoes.
I can't wait for him to die in the first act.
Shut the fuck up. He's not dying. He's all over that trailer.
Okay, hang on. He's not dying in the first act, but there's no guarantee he sees through the whole movie.
Sure. My point is, I think between his handsome face and the fact that this is tornadoes, and I would assume my prediction is that Twisters is going to make north of 500 million. I don't know if it's going to get to $1 billion.
That's probably fair.
It's a large margin between 500 and $1 billion, but I think it's going to be a top 5 movie this year, based on how it's doing.
Given
right now.
where everything else sits right now in the top 5. Well, hang on. So let's project a little bit, because one of those spots is going to be Despicable Me 4 in all probability.
Another spot's Deadpool. So right now, Inside Out 2, Dune, and what's the third one? Godzilla versus Kong. So here's the thing. It needs to beat Godzilla versus Kong to be in the top 5 with if you give 2 other spots to Despicable Me 4 and Deadpool and Wolverine.
So again, very possible.
Yeah.
But I have my underdog movie that I'm rooting for this year to just succeed against all odds, and we're not going to be reviewing it to the best of my knowledge. But I'm excited for Long Legs because I love me a good horror movie like that, and that one looks like it's going to be the right kind of just get under your skin creepy.
Alexis is always looking for stuff to review with you and Jason, and she needs to stop picking the ones that I've already put on the schedule, like Nosferatu. But I mean, go ask her about Long Legs, because I don't.
We'll see.
That's a safe one that I'm not going to do. Trust me.
You know what I want to happen with that one, Mark? I want to schedule it with everyone else. They all fall out, so I do have to call you and say, "Hey, Mark, I desperately need to talk about this movie." So if you would please bite that particular bullet.
We'll wait for it to come PVOD, and we'll put it in a triple feature with Arachnophobia and I don't know, something else. It's another good spider movie.
It's not about spiders.
Oh, what's Long Legs about?
It's kind of like it looks like a creepier version of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, super.
Look up a trailer. Then
I thought it was about spiders. Why I ignored it.
No. Find a trailer. I don't think it's up your alley necessarily, but find a trailer. Thank me later.
Okay, you son of a bitch. All right. So just rounding out the July schedule, and then we end the month with Deadpool versus Wolverine. Gosh, that's a nasty fist fight between Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine. But it is what it is.
That's not going to be as nasty as you think.
August 2nd. Nothing that we're paying any attention to. It's also the beginning of school in some places, like, for my kids. So we're doing Sons of Anarchy that week. But I think the next big movie in August is Borderlands, which is tracking pretty well. Then Alien Romulus, which is now a good media push for. And then this godforsaken Crow reboot, which I wish they just fucking cancel it. Like, and I'm generally not like you or Pat. Like, look, we spent a lot of money on this. Just cancel it. Well, we're living in the post-David Zaslav world now where finished movies are canceled on an ongoing basis. Someone cancel The Crow. It looks terrible.
And put out any of the other movies that Zaslav canceled, please.
Why is the new Crow movie starring Wish version Jared Leto? That's what I want to know.
Because they couldn't get Jared Leto.
Ugh. I don't want to.
It would not have made it any better, by the way, because...
Yeah. All right, folks. We are down to the last segment here. Ladies and gentlemen, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Well, not wholly unexpected. The critics,
that's about right.
Yeah, the critics appreciated it more than the audience did, which is about what I thought was going to happen. Top critics is 83%. You go to all critics, it's 85%. So yeah, the drop from all the top is only 2%.
Negligible.
Yeah. The audience score, verified audience, is 74%. All audiences is 70%. So
it's about right.
Yeah. So when it actually gets to, I'm wondering how much of that 4% is people being angry or irritated, annoyed, unamused with the choice of cast, for the lead of this thing, which is an African American woman, and so they reacted poorly to it. And I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not making hay out of anything.
I'm not. I imagine there's some. I think it'd be ignorant to pretend that none of it. I imagine more of it is people pissed off they didn't get to see more Djimon Hounsou, and after he was all over the marketing, and they're manifesting now. And so, yeah, I'm mocking your point, and you're no-selling it, and
I'm honestly like half listening, and they're like, "Oh wait, you son of a bitch, you douchebag." All right, moving on.
Where's our AI? You didn't get the AI.
Oh, I didn't do the AI. Hang on, I forgot how to. 2 weeks of this, and I forget how to do the bit. The AI writes, grounded in raw humanity by Lupita Nyong'o's and Joseph Quinn's The Sideways entry into a quiet place finds fresh notes of fright to play amongst the silence.
Okay, one, I appreciate that the AI is having to work with the bad puns and the bad writing. That's bad. Please don't do that. Second, there's not a whole lot new here for this gimmickry. The closest we get is a few bits where they distract it by setting off car alarms, which is somewhat inventive, but
Mark Jackson of Epoch Times. Had this prequel focused on rude people learning to shut up because otherwise radar-headed bat pterodactyls would eat their heads, we would have had something. It's an elevator pitch. Radar-headed bat pterodactyls eating people's heads is actually pretty good.
Yeah, this is your son's spirit animal.
James Berardinelli of Real Views. Although some scenes are suffused with suffocating tension and there are plenty of flashy special effects sequences, Day One at times feels more like an art house movie than something made for mainstream audiences. That's not a bad thing, you douchebag.
Yeah, I don't know that he's saying it's a bad thing, but it is kind of couched as more of a criticism than an observation. And now he's not wrong. This is more about things other than the monsters, and that's a good thing.
Sarah Michelle Fetters of MovieFreak.com, top critic. A single act of kindness. A monastery a monetary instance of compassion. That's all it takes to help someone in their darkest hour. Heck, it may be even enough to save the world.
Okay, that's
Ma'am?
a bit much.
It's just, I know
These are
that's the
Wendy's?
Paul. Nice. Well done. Sarah Vincent of Sarah G. Vincent Views. All right. A Quiet
Doesn't
Place.
deserve it.
Okay. A Quiet Place Day One is fine. Actually, one of my wives. But the story. But it's fine. But the story and special effects are beneath the cast capabilities.
The special effects are not beneath their capabilities. That's a bridge too far as a complaint goes. Not the best CGI in the world, but it's not that bad.
Sarah Gopal of Directorial. The key to these films has always been a need to be quiet, as even inconsequential noise attracts the hungry creatures. However, this movie features a surprising amount of talking, which doesn't feel like it's keeping with the spirit of the franchise.
Odd complaint, especially when they go out of their way to find moments and reasons for the talking to work.
Hey, there's our buddy Kevin Carr.
Oh
Fact About the Movie.
no! How was this too much movie for Kevin Carr?
I was just thinking that actually. I can't help but feel they are just retreading the same path, almost as if no one thought beyond the initial success of the first film. Hey, welcome to our side of the fence, fat guy.
Okay, one, yes, that is kind of one of our complaints, but two, no, this is not about the same things as the first two movies, fundamentally.
Well, this was definitely this was too much movie for Nick Johnson of Vanyaland while he was drinking PBR. A Quiet Place Day One fails at expanding the possibilities of the concept beyond presenting it in its most maudlin form.
Yeah, this is a man drinking Miller Lite.
The future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfree, Grace Randolph of Beyond the Trailer.
No, just that's not funny.
Grace Randolph calls you daddy in my universe. Just want you to know that.
I mean, I can't stop your headcanon. I can tell you to stop verbalizing it.
You can tell me a lot of things. I'm not going to do it. A very well-made film.
Man, if we live in that world, that's the world where I'm on death row.
Oh, Daddy, how are you doing? I brought you some canteen. Shut up, Grace. You can't hit people in the visitation room. I've got a whole scene going right now.
Oh, no. I'm on death row because she's no longer with us.
Okay. Daddy, no. I'm sorry. Grace Randolph calling you daddy is never going to leave my head. We're stuck with this now.
Have you heard every intro to her reviews ever?
I've heard whatever clips they cut out of her reviews on Midnight's Edge.
So...
Oh, my God. I had a girlfriend that did that over the last year. And every time she did it, I wanted to stab her in the fucking neck.
Yeah. Yes, this is why I'm on death row in your universe now.
Okay, got it.
The third time we sit down to breakfast.
And she goes, it's oatmeal again.
The third time she can't make up her mind about where we're going to go out to eat, we're done. That's just piano wire around the neck, and
we haven't had a good fantasy of killing women on this show in a very long time.
I just sit there and I wait for the cops to show up. I don't even try to hide.
Come out with your head. I'm already coming out. Rob comes out in just a bathrobe and fucking slippers. Take me away, boys. I know what I've done.
With her head in one hand. The piano wire takes it all the way off. I'm going hereditary on her. Just...
All right. Anyway, the former Mrs. Robert Winfree, Grace Randolph.
The dearly departed.
A very well-made film with excellent performances from Nyong'o and Quinn. However, it's also a surprisingly sad film and not the popcorn blockbuster one would expect during the summer movie season. So, you need to put small and scope dystopian horror film. I am amused.
I'm going to object to this movie being sad. That's my only major complaint with her categorization here. It's poignant, but it's not sad.
All right. So I haven't done this in a while.
All right.
We toil in obscurity.
We do.
After 10 years or so
Give or
of
take.
doing this show. Yet Joseph Robinson of Fish Jelly Films on YouTube gets to be on Rotten Tomatoes and we don't. The world is not fair or just. And here is what this salmon has to say.
Don't insult the mighty salmon like that. They're wonderful fish.
This film should be called A Quiet Kitty, The Search for Fentanyl and Pizza. Are you okay?
Do I look okay, Mark?
Generally
Do I look okay after that?
Generally speaking, no. But what about this time in particular?
Okay, one, throwing fentanyl in there is a poor decision.
He's trying to be timely.
He is, and he's failing miserably.
Well, at life, sure, but in that particular instance, also.
Yes. Look, if you wanted to make a joke about the cat, I'm not saying you should, but if you did, the cat's name is Frodo. How do you not do something with that?
Yeah.
It's Frodo, the cancer bearer, as he guides his bestricken human to her final resting place amid the slopes of Mount Doom. And then he flies off on the giant eagle that is Josh Quinn.
Speaking of guiding her cancer victim to his certain doom, Amy Nicholson of Washington Post, top critic.
In her case, she's guiding her dementia patient to re-election, is more what she's trying to do.
Animal owners will snicker when Sam has to figure out how to silently open the pull-on tab of a can of pet food. An unmistakable crack rip that makes all hungry creatures come running.
Why is this the cutout?
It's like, what a weird pull.
Yeah, like that's a poor decision to pull out.
I'm like reading these. I'm like, this is one where it's like, well, I want to read what the critics say, and I'm like, I don't understand what you wrote here.
This
like,
has nothing to do with anything.
What is this to do with? Tell me if the movie's good, you dumb bitch. Jesus is what I would say if I wasn't somebody who, did this sort of thing.
Take it down a notch there.
I'm doing an impression of the average movie watcher trying to decipher if it's a movie based on the reviews.
We've delved into self-parody already. Okay.
Yes. Years ago. Kurt Loder, speaking of self-parody, Kurt Loder of Creator Syndicate. Fans will get the rampant space aliens they crave along with lots of other stuff. In fact, the movie is mostly other stuff, talky and sorrowful. And there's a cat, too. Quite a lot of cat, actually. Oh, for God's sakes.
How is this guy still alive?
I don't know, but Eric Martin of Rogers TV thinks this is the best directed film in the Frightening franchise.
No.
Not even
no. One is much better directed. One is much better directed.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, Jeffrey Harris of 401mania.com.
Be nice to Jeff.
Director Michael Sarnoski weaves a compelling human story highlighting the bond between Eric and Samira amid such a frightening ordeal. Amy Nicholson, learn from Jeff Harris. Do better.
Yes.
That was a perfectly fine poll, Jeff. Well done. You can still be our friend. All right. Well, folks, it is time to say goodbye. I actually, for all the whining and complaining I'm doing about people wanting to be on the show and getting between me and you, and I don't like it, I think we're alone on the next one, too. Which is weird, because I would have thought that one would have had Zach and Alexis come running, but neither one of them has said anything to me about doing the show. So it might be just me and you for the second year in a row. We're doing this, dealing with these characters in this franchise all by ourselves. Because I feel
look, you and I have
last year we had a run of everyone wanting to be on all of our summer shows, and then it was just me and you, and we kind of looked around and had that same kind of thing, like all the people we don't want to hear are gone. It's just me and you. Hooray! Minions.
Yeah, well, because it was just you and I for Minions too. The Rise of Gru. We're something about that franchise. You and I always have good discussions around it.
Yeah, those were always good shows. We had a good show. Look, we didn't agree on some things, but who cares? God, if we don't argue on this show, what are we doing?
Yeah, but Mark, I've been told that any minor disagreement means one of us is soy and the other's a fascist. That's how this goes now in contemporary.
Were you told that by your girlfriend? Because that's usually a woman who says those sort of things. Now I can turn the misogyny down.
Yes. Now you can, please. Please and thank you.
to tell my son, you can't be misogynistic all of the time. You have to select your spots with the right targets, or otherwise it doesn't mean anything. He was like, oh, okay.
Your son wants to be a machine gunner, not a sniper, and you have to have different material if you want to just spray the block.
Speaking of spraying the block, no podcast this week. This is the only one we're doing because it's July 4th week, and I don't podcast 68 days in a row anymore. However, next week, we will be talking, I should be in the right month, Despicable Me 4, and then on July 11th, assuming everyone is there and doesn't have a date or has electricity or remembers to watch the movies or it's not dark out and there aren't wolves after them, it'll be myself and Pat Mullen and Ronnie Adams on the second half of our High School in Trouble series that we did way back in like February or some shit. We initially started with Stand and Deliver, Lean on Me, and Dangerous Minds. And now, as Pat said, now we do the fun ones.
Well, you got one good movie in that first set.
There's two.
What's the second?
Lean on Me and Stand and Deliver are fantastic. They are fantastic. I will truck with no other opinions. You can hum at me all you want, but
you're being super generous.
Which one's the one you don't like?
I don't actually like either of them, but I accept that Lean on Me is a well-made film.
You don't like Stand and Deliver?
No.
You're a crazy person. Anyway, so now we're going to do the fun.
I don't like any of them.
Now we're doing the fun ones. We're doing The Substitute, The Principal, and 187, yo. So that'll be fun. So that's what's coming up here.
One of those is at least pretty solid.
One of those is a movie. So that's all we got here on the Rattlers and Broadcasting Network. What do you got going on over in your neck of the woods there, Sonny?
Well,
sleepy time.
Dude, you've been yawning for like the whole podcast. Shut up. You know I'm right. Shut up. Okay, stop gesticulating at me then if you're going to be quiet and still snarky. Oh, is that how you set up your elbow drop? That's just peachy.
That's the bionic elbow.
You ain't Dusty Rhodes.
Oh my God, do your stupid plugs.
All right, so International Fight Week went down on Saturday, UFC 303, and it was not a good card. This poor card, Mark, because I know you don't care and you don't keep up with any of this stuff.
All I want to know is how is the two rabid badgers in a gunny sack?
Let me go through what happened here, okay?
Okay.
So, first of all, this poor card. Originally, the original plan for the main event of UFC 303 was Conor McGregor's big return to fight Michael Chandler. That's the plan. That's the selling point. $20 million gate, in theory, right? Because Conor. 2 weeks out, Conor breaks a toe and pulls out of the fight. So the UFC now has to find a new main event, and because they have no longer big star power at the top of the card, we must also now find a new co-main event. So in steps Alex Pereira and Jiri Prochazka in the main event, and our new co-main event is Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega. It's a very good fight. The original co-main event for UFC 303 was Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, which is a perfectly acceptable fight. Khalil Roundtree had a drug test issue and pulled out. He was replaced by Carlos Ulberg. Jamal Hill had a knee injury, pulled out, was replaced by Anthony Smith. Carlos Ulberg pulled out like 2 weeks before the fight, or the week before the fight, and was replaced by middleweight Roman Dolidze. So our featured bout started life looking very differently, and each iteration got worse. So we get to the event, Mark. And the day before, so during weigh-ins, a little before weigh-ins, word comes down, Brian Ortega is having weight issues. He's not going to make 145. He says the fight has to be at lightweight. So poor Diego Lopez, who goes to bed the day before weigh-ins at 146 pounds on weight, is woken up at 4 a.m. and groggily answers the phone, and it's some UFC schmuck going, "You got to fight 10 pounds heavier." And this poor Brazilian who lives in Mexico going, "Okay, I'm on weight, man. What are you talking about?" Like, "Nope, got to be 155. He goes, swears, hangs up the phone, weighs in at 155. Ortega weighs in at 155. And that fight looks like, okay, something's a little bit odd there, but okay. Unless you look at Brian Ortega during the weigh-ins and you realize that is not a well man. Something is not right there. So the event begins, and it's not great. There's some dull stretches. There's a few good moments. And then about the time little before the main card is supposed to start, rumblings start to build on Twitter, Mark. Rumblings about the co-main event is off. And it turns out these are true. Whatever caused Brian Ortega to miss weight was some illness that he's been dealing with and thought he might have it under control when he signed on like 3 weeks' notice to take this fight anyway. Couldn't get it under control. He's got a fever of 103 degrees. Not going to fight. Instead of a fight that I was looking forward to, the UFC gets on the phone and calls from around the corner on the sports massage table, I kid you not, getting a massage, on 4 hours' notice, Dan Ige, who arrives and fights Diego Lopez in the co-main event in a mostly forgettable but generally passable fight. If the main event for that card had not ended in the spectacular knockout that it did, this whole event would have been a catastrophe. An utter catastrophe.
Alex Pereira?
Yeah. Beautiful head kick, 13 seconds into the second round. Lovely stuff. If you want my full breakdown of all of that, you can listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, where I talk a lot about Pereira and what a unicorn that man is in the combat sports world. Because people don't do what he's doing. You don't come into MMA from kickboxing at the age of 35 and become a 2-weight world champion in 2.5 years. Just doesn't happen.
It's pretty impressive.
And he is probably, depending on how you want to feel about Conor, if you take away Conor and John Jones, because neither of them's fighting all that often these days, Pereira's probably the biggest star in the sport. Which is weird to think about, but is true. And that's not actually a damning indictment on everything. He's genuinely struck a chord with audiences, so good on him.
Yeah, it is good.
And he wants to try his hand at heavyweight to become a 3-weight world champion, and I don't like his chances up there, but who am I to say no to that man? He's terrifying. So again, full report, you can either read it over at 411mania.com or listen to my ramblings on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. There is no UFC event this week, so just Friday we'll be covering WWE SmackDown. I don't know what to expect anymore. I mean, I mostly do, but like the details, because poor Paul Heyman earned the biggest pop of his life on last Friday. When that penguin refused to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as the tribal chief. And Mark, you can appreciate a good pop in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Madison Square Garden erupted for that man when he said, "I acknowledge you are not my tribal chief," in a way that is rare for that venue. And of course, Paul Heyman, you can't do that to Solo Sikoa when he's flanked by the Sons of Haku, even though one of them sucks. And Jacob Fatu, Mark, the Samoan werewolf, is in the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the enforcer for Solo Sikoa now. And bless him, he's a wild man. His debut was him taking out Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Cody Rhodes by himself.
Is he the one that was in MLW that has criminal charges and like there was Jim Cornette said wouldn't make it in the WWE only because he might not be able to travel internationally?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I love him in MLW.
That is still a hurdle for him because felonies don't ever go away. But new management at WWE was more than willing. He lost, dude. Look up Fatu's debut. That
Mhm.
dude lost a chunk of weight. He's relatively slim.
Didn't he show up at whatever the event was in France? No, yeah, France. Not that long ago.
No.
But okay, that was the other son of Haku that showed up.
Yeah, that was Tonga Loa, the man with the worst punches in professional wrestling.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's useless. Tama Tonga's passable, but I hate the Gorillas of Destiny for all their work in New Japan, and Tonga Loa mostly because he sucks.
Okay.
But yeah, Fatu showed up. Dude, he closed his debut by putting Cody Rhodes on the announce table, then jumping off the top rope and splashing him through it. Then getting up and hugging Solo Sikoa.
Nice. Was Roman Reigns off TV?
Nope. Roman has not been seen since he lost the belt at WrestleMania.
So I'm asking. Yes, Roman Reigns is off television. Great. Thank you.
I thought you said, is he on? No, he is off. He's been shooting a movie. Some heist comedy.
Ugh, okay.
Look, he's like the guy he's the mark that's getting robbed. I'm curious to see what he might do. He's going to come back around SummerSlam, and man, the crowd pop when he comes back. He is going to be the babyface of all babyfaces. Ever since he lost that belt,
mm-hmm.
the night after, the crowd chanted, "Thank you, Roman." Ever since then,
yeah.
Anytime the new bloodline is on screen, nothing but "We want Roman" chants. That man has not been seen on TV in months, and he's the most over babyface this side of Cody Rhodes. It's crazy.
Jen's throwing a party on August 3rd. I told her, I was like, I don't care what's going on with the party or what people are doing to each other. We have to have SummerSlam on in the background. And she was like, that's fine. You'll be the only dork watching wrestling while everybody else is having a good time. And I'm like, that's the way I like it.
So we'll see how that goes. But so then poor Paul Heyman got hit with a Samoan spike. Jacob Fatu then off the top rope hit what was, I think, supposed to be a splash and wound up just being like a headbutt. Then they gave poor Paul Heyman, the man takes like one bump a year. They shield bombed him through the announce table.
Oh my God. Paul Heyman's 100.
And very heavy.
Yeah.
And Jacob Fatu hoisted that man up and through the announce table. Just boom.
Could you imagine what was going through? Like it's like, well, if I'm gonna go, this is the way I want to go, with a giant Samoan slamming me through a table.
So there's a lot of heat on that group now, and I say bless Paul Heyman. Without him, this bloodline thing would have died on the vine when Tama Tonga showed up. Yeah. If you don't have Paul Heyman there to be an emotional core for everything that's going on.
Anything else?
We don't have another podcast this week. Tune in for our review of Minions 4, Despicable Me 4, wherein Mark and I will debate the merits of slapstick, how much he hates fun, and Mark will turn into me. He'll be doing the plot synopsis. I'll be doing all the skits and bits. Mark will want to die. And we'll just trade places. He'll put me on that side of the screen. It'll be great.
Banana! And with that said,
have I told you that my mom's generic ringtones is the Minions singing that song?
Perfect. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood. He's Robert. I'm Mark.
Look, man, if we can't have the Looney Tunes, we can have the Minions. That's kind of where we are.
Be well, be safe, and behave.